Hey guys, welcome to MWR Wealth. We just want to talk to you today about the private reserve account and to get you guys a better understanding of how this works before your consultation. Make sure that you guys have your financial house in order, as we wanted to learn a little bit more about your income, expenses, debt, and making sure that you do have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund in place. You must have that before this will work for you. We want to make sure that you can have everything in place, as this money is not instantly liquid, but we want to talk about all the benefits of the private reserve account. So let's really just first off start by talking about what the life is you would design, because now that you've gotten those first things out of the way, you've gotten, that your income is more than your outgo, your debt is mostly kicked in the butt, so you've got extra cash flow coming in now, and you've managed to squirrel away some money so you never have to worry about using a credit card to pay bills ever again. You don't have to worry about it. And now you can say, now that I have this extra money, what do I do with it? How do I change not only my life, but the generations to come? What is that life you would design? And the private reserve account can definitely help you to do that. So first off, let's talk about what we've all learned about, which is the bank. So right now you take your money and you give it to the bank. And what does the bank pay you for that? Next to nothing, nothing percent, right? And then the craziest thing is that what does the bank do with your money once you give it to them? They don't keep it in the vault. They take your money and they lend it out to others. In some cases, right back to you at a much higher interest rate, maybe 29% on a credit card, and they keep all that money in the middle. And if you're crazy enough to want some of that money, you've got to qualify just to borrow it. You got to pay them interest. They set the loan terms, telling them how and when you're going to pay yourself back. And ultimately, that $1 serves one purpose. It buys you a house, car, purse, or pizza. That's why we're trying to teach people there is a better way. And that's where the private reserve account comes in. The private reserve account, if we could make our own bank, what would we give ourselves? Well, first, we'd want to actually make money. So we'd link our money to the stock market so we can make money when the market goes up. But this is bank money. We can't ever afford to lose this money. So it also need to be guaranteed to never lose money when the market goes down. Did you even know that was possible, that you could make money when the market was up but never lose it when it was down, guaranteed? Accounts like these have been around for over 25 years, but they're not offered by some of the largest institutions in the country. And that's why they're typically not, made well aware to everybody else. And we want to bring these to every single one of you. It's your money. You don't have to qualify to borrow. If you want to borrow that money from yourself, you got the money in there. You don't have to qualify to borrow. You're the banker. And you can take that money out and continue to earn interest on it the same way the banks get to. They take the money out of your account, they lend it to other people, and yet somehow your bank account balance still says the money's there. Wouldn't it be nice if you could do that? You set the loan terms, deciding if you want to pay yourself back, and if so, when and how much and what that looks like. And it's tax free at any age. This is a big one, guys, because as taxes go forward in the future, we know taxes tend to go up. And if taxes are higher in the future, wouldn't it be nice to know that you don't have to worry about that? And now this $1 can serve multiple purposes, because it could become an emergency fund, a retirement account, an education fund, a lending vehicle, maybe a real estate investment tool, whatever it is you want it to be. You can have $1 serve multiple purposes. Typically, this is the point where everybody goes, man, that just sounds too good to be true. How could this be possible? Many of us don't understand all the details and options that are out there, and they aren't shared with all of us, because if we don't have enough money, no one's taking the time to teach us. That's what we're doing here today. Now, there are rules and guidelines. We have to follow certain IRS guidelines. This is not perfect for everybody. And it does take a couple of years to be able to get full liquidity. That being said, though, this is still faster in many cases than waiting till you're 59 and a half to touch your money. So there's some options here we can take a look at for you guys going forward. But let's talk about the advantages of setting up these private reserve accounts. First and foremost, you get tax deferred growth. You're able to make that money without having to pay taxes every year. You make money when the market's up, you never lose it when it's down. And as long as you pay attention to those IRS guidelines, which is what we do, we can contribute $200 a month, $500 a month, or $1,000,000 a month into one of these plans, as long as we properly follow those IRS guidelines. You can access that money tax-free at any age with no penalties. So it can be a great retirement account alternative, but there's no early withdrawal penalties and no late withdrawal penalties. Also, this can now cover long-term care and provide living benefits. It's a loan and lending alternative, provides for college planning, help you to pay off your house more quickly than just getting a 15-year mortgage in many cases. It's liquid and available after a little bit of time in there, that you can access that money, pull it out. You can take that interest out, or take the money out and continue to earn interest on the money you borrow from yourself. And you can leave that money behind for the next generation tax-free. Which of these is your favorite? I mean, these are some incredible, powerful tools we'll be able to use. So let's talk about these too good to be true things. And first, let's start by talking about the stock market, right? The way we're all taught to make money is you just take your money and you put it in the stock market. And over time, you're going to average 6, 8, 10, 12%, depending on which TV or radio host you listen to. And you're going to have a big pile of money. The problem is even most financial advisors focus on this thing called average, and averages are not real. Let me explain what I mean. The way you find an average is pretty simple. First, you add up all the numbers, right? So minus 50 plus 50, that's 0. Plus 50 minus 30, that's 20, right? So we got 20% divided by 4 years to get the average. We average 5% a year. So you have that 100 grand and you average 5% a year for 4 years. You end up with $121,000 after 4 years. That math makes sense, right? Matter of fact, if you check it on your calculator, it'll come out perfect every single time. The problem is that even though the math is right, it's wrong. Let me share with you what happens if you do this a little bit more slowly. If you take 100 grand, you lose 50%, you only have 50 grand left. Now, when you make 50% back, you're doing it on half as much money. Half of 50 is only 25. So you started with 100, you end with 75. Does that sound like a 0% rate of return to you? Because we just agreed minus 50 plus 50 is 0. But yet my bank account doesn't agree. You keep that going, you end up with $21,000 less than you started with, not $21,000 more. And yet some dude in a suit's going to try and convince you averaged 5%. Do we have a problem? Of course. Now, these are just made up numbers to prove a point. But let me show you some numbers that you or your loved ones are probably more familiar with. This is called the S&P 500 or the Standard & Poor's. It's the thing they talk about on news often when they talk about the stock market. This is what we call the lost decade. So this is the dot-com bubble burst, 9/11, and Enron. 3 years of negative, followed by a few good years of recovery. Followed by 2008, the housing crisis. You might remember what happened to your 401k or your parents' 401k at that time. And then a few more years of recovery. These are 11 real years you and people you know and love attempted to save over their retirement through. Take a look at what they averaged over that 11-year period. 1.95%. That's all they earned over those 11 years on average. That means if they had $500,000 sitting in a bank account earning exactly 1.95% a year, they'd end up with $618,000 after 11 years. But inflation grew faster than their money did. And the problem is it gets worse because most people don't keep their money in the bank earning exactly 1.95. Instead, they put it in the stock market where they lost it. They made it back. They lost it. They made it back. And after 11 years, they didn't even have 618. They only had $520,000. And they were just told, hang on, it'll come back, think long term. But what if you don't have long term anymore? What if you're getting older? Or what if you're getting closer to that and you're going, I don't have that kind of time, right? You have no control over what makes the market go up and down. You're just told now's the perfect time to buy always because that's what somebody's selling. But the craziest part about this is that red line and that green line have the exact same average. This is the problem. When you include a negative number in your average, it can throw everything off. So unless you know a place where you can get that guaranteed 8, 10, or 12% return, you're never going to end up with a pile of money those guys are telling you about. That's why we say, look, I'm sure you'd agree, it would simply be better if you could make money when the market was up, but never lose it when it was down. That would be better, obviously. But that would actually be too good to be true. So instead, what if you could only make some of the ups? You don't get it all. Let's say the most you could make in a year was 12%. So in 2003, you do not get to make 27. The most you can make in a year is 12. So you only make 12. 2006, you don't get to make 15. You only make 12. But in 2008, you just simply don't go backwards. So you're not making nearly as much, but you're not going backwards. So you think you'd have more or less than that green line? Well, the answer is more, not just a little bit more, but a lot more. You end up with $941,000 over the same period of time simply because you don't spend any time going backwards. Those first 3 years, you don't lose anything. The next year, you don't make as much, but you're making it on all 500. You're not spending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years getting back to your starting line. Can you imagine trying to run a race, maybe a 100-meter dash, but they tell you before you're allowed to run, when that gun goes off, you have to run 100 meters backwards. Everybody else is just going to keep running forwards. I mean, you got to be Usain Bolt, and you still got a chance at losing that race, right? Because you have to keep going backwards all the time. You have to make up lost ground. We feel that investing should be about making new money, not about making back old money you used to have. Now, this is how we make money inside the private reserve account. Not even going to bother asking you which one of you these want, because obviously we all like to make money. So instead, it's going to do a pop quiz here and say, what is one thing people like to do more than make money? And the answer is spend it, right? That's why we all go out and do this. We want to spend this money. So let's talk about a way that we can use this money to spend money for ourselves. Right now, we're going to talk about a car here, but this could just as easily be a rental property or an investment or something else. But one of the ways we often spend money is we go out and buy a car. So you buy a $25,000 car. You pay $471 a month for 60 months. You end up paying $3,000 in interest. So you pay $28,000 for a $25,000 car that at the end of 5 years is worth nowhere near 25 grand. And once most people pay off their car, what do they do next? They go get another one. Now, what's a smarter way to buy a car? Well, do what your mama told you, save it up, put it in the bank, maybe under your mattress, and then take it by cash, right? So you pay 25 grand eventually after you save all that money up. You pay cash for that car, you drive it around, but that car at the end of 5 years is worth nowhere near what you paid for it. And you spent all the money, so there's no money left in your account. It's a little bit better than paying 28 grand to be in the same place, but not that great. What if there was a way instead where you could take that money out of your account, drive your car around, and have your money keep making you money? That's where the private reserve account comes in. So the private reserve account allows you to put your money in a location where, in this example, you can make 14% when the market's up, and you're guaranteed to never lose money when the market's down, right? So here's the cool thing, that you can take that money out, you could just withdraw it, but instead these companies, backed by some of the largest insurance companies in the world, they ensure that you can never lose money. They say, look, we'll give you a loan against your money instead. We'll let you borrow your money at 5, but you can earn up to 14% when the stock market's up. That means you're borrowing at 5, earning 14. You're making 9% on the money you borrowed to buy this car. Does that sound like a better way to buy a car? Absolutely. But let's talk about the worst thing that can happen, because I like to be a skeptic. What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, you take that money out and the stock market tanks. You then earn 0 and you're charged 5% interest. In that case, you're in the same boat as everybody else with a car note. But most car loans are not 1 year, right? I've seen them as far as 8 years now, but let's pretend they're still just 5. We took the worst 5 years in history. Right there, it says auto loan alternative, 2000 to 2004. Worst 5 years in history. The first 3 years in a row were negative. We would have gotten a 0 and been charged 5% interest. We only made money during the last 2 years, and here's what happened. Now, we show you paying the same $471 a month back to yourself. You don't have to, but since you're going to pay back the car company, you should pay yourself back. Well, immediately you save almost $1,000 in interest. But even more importantly, during just those last 2 years, your money earns $3,101 in the stock market while you're using that money driving that car around. Meaning you saved over $4,000 just driving this car around. You made 4 grand. Does that sound like a better way to buy a car now? Of course. Now, this is the worst 5 years. Do you want to see a good 5 years? Instead, during a good 5 years, this is 2010 to 2014. In 2011, the market was negative. So this isn't a perfect 5 years. This is just a good 5 years. Paying yourself back, you saved the grand, but your money earned $15,000, meaning if you did not pay yourself back, you still have almost 15,000 new dollars in your account that weren't there before that you could go spend. And if you were smart enough to pay yourself back, you'd have the 25 you borrowed plus the 15, you'd now have $40,000 tax-free. You could use to buy a better car, to invest in real estate, or just to sip margaritas on the beach with. It's your money to do what you want with, tax-free. Guys, this is the power of the private reserve account. Really hope that you guys have gotten excited about what you see here and that you're ready to take your next steps, whether it's getting your financial house in order, or if your house is already in order, now go ahead and click on that book that consultation meeting and bring any questions you have to be able to answer by the experts. Hey, thanks so much for spending some time with us today, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.